Hi, I'm Sarah Bentley Pearson, and I live here in Atlanta. I am sort of a renegade because I have done styling work, but my main job has been real estate, and I started that in 2005. And because I'm not from Atlanta, I created a list called Sarah's List. And then through the styling and all the work that I've done, I created my Instagram account, Sarah Styles Your Life. And I just decided, after realizing how many wonderful people I have met, that I wanted to create a podcast to share with you all the great people that I have met throughout the Southeast. There are so many talented people here, and I feel like Atlanta is really, or the Southeast in general, is really an innovator. And I hope that you will enjoy all my interesting, diverse guests that I'm going to bring throughout the years. I'm so excited to introduce John Howard. He has a firm called Howard Design Studio. His work is absolutely beautiful, and he is a Georgia native. We will just talk about all the beautiful gardens that he's created in Atlanta, the Southeast, and other parts of the United States. I'm excited for you all to meet him. I respect him so much, and I hope you will find him as exciting and interesting as I do. So why don't you just tell me a little bit? I wanted to create this podcast for people who inspire me, and I want to hear more about what inspires you.
Okay.
And
sure.
I see that you like to travel a lot, and I want to hear about the metaphysics and all of that. But why don't you just tell me a little bit, was your line to becoming a landscape architect a straight line? Because it sounds like you went to school for that, and it sounds like you knew that you wanted to do this from a young age.
It was not exactly a straight line.
No.
But I did make a decision fairly early to go into landscape architecture and study that in college. So, like in high school, I did drafting. I worked for architects and engineers all through high school. So I knew I wanted to be in a creative field. But it really wasn't until I started researching college curriculum that I even discovered that there was a profession of landscape architecture. So it really combined a lot of interest.
So you sort of picked the field before you knew it was something you really wanted to do for your life?
Yes.
If career,
Yeah.
It was just like, okay, I'll do this. And then as you got into it, you sort of loved it even more. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I wanted to be in a creative career.
Right.
But I was thinking it was going to be architecture, graphic design, interior design. I knew it would be design of some sort.
Well, you are a tastemaker. I mean, I've seen your work before, but I really spent some time looking at your page and, your website and all of that. And it is really my aesthetic because it's green, clean, not a lot of color, just very simple, but extremely beautiful. And so you must have a great eye. You must love art. I'm assuming you do, and interiors, and it probably all goes together.
Absolutely.
But what was your first big job here in Atlanta?
Well, it kind of grew. I mean, my early career in landscape architecture, I did a lot of corporate work. And when I started my own firm, I discovered residential design, which is what we almost exclusively do at my firm now.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of found my way into it and realized that dealing with residential clients, that everything was coming from the heart, from emotion. All the decisions that were being made from the client were from a place of really desiring something and wanting it rather than a bottom line budget number like the developers in the corporate world
Right.
had.
Well, when we were speaking to Young last week, he said that he felt bad for the landscape architects because the budget gets shaved on a project with you guys because everybody wants to do everything on the inside. And that, and I know on the little bit of work that I've done that I've really regretted not starting with the outside. because it takes time to grow and formulate, and it really can take a very average house and make it super beautiful. So I'm sure you run into that with clients that, you know, the money is running out on the budget.
It does happen.
So how do you,
sometimes.
I've also heard that a lot of times you're building a story about a person before you start the project. Is that how you do it?
Sometimes building a story, and then other times it's just spending enough time with someone to know something about them, so that I can create a space or spaces for them that I think will enhance who they already are. So it's really my process usually at the beginning is finding out a lot about them. I always want to go through their house first and see the house, see how they live, see how the rooms work.
Oh, really?
And
so you want it, I mean, because a lot of times I think the landscape architecture goes with the house, like on the outside, but no, you're really trying to personalize it?
personalize it, and like the outdoor spaces, I think need to have some relationship to the way the inside of the house lives. Because I think about it as being really the same thing, creating space for living. It just happens to be exterior space.
And what do you, it looks like your work, I mean, I noticed that you got the Schutze Award, which is very classic architecture, so I'm assuming that's more of your classic work, but are you sticking with that because that's, you know, really works, or what are you seeing coming in the future, especially with droughts and all? I mean, we have a rainy day today, but in general, you know, people are more concerned about wasting water. And what are you seeing as the future for landscape architecture?
Well, I don't know. That's a big question. Let me answer the part about the traditional work first. So I'm actually kind of a modernist. I have a very clean personal aesthetic. I live in a modern interior, and I like simple, beautiful things. So that's like my personal sense of aesthetic. But the eastern part of the U.S., where the bulk of my work is, tends to take all of its precedence from Western Europe, and it's very traditional. So the architecture that's out there is traditional for the most part. It's not like California where, you know, there's a lot of modern there. So, but I try to bring my sense of loving clean lines, minimalism to the work. So I think that's what some people see in my work, where they say, well, everything's so clean.
But I love that about your work, because it's very tidy and defined and rich looking, in my opinion. I mean, I don't like a lot of busyness. So I think that, but how is that different when, say, from out west and how they do it? Well, let me back up and say, do you hate turf?
No, I don't hate turf at all. I think it has its place.
So, I mean, are you working with it more? I've noticed it in a lot of the really nice houses in Atlanta, the new ones, like that Stan Benecke recently did on Tuxedo. It had turf, and it appealed to me just because the ease of it all. And
you're talking about synthetic turf, right?
Right.
Yeah. I use it sometimes. I don't suggest it, but if someone wants to use it, if the situation's right, we'll do that.
And why do you not suggest it?
Because I like
real grass.
I like the real thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But don't you find in your tidiness that, now you could using real plants around it, but don't you think that it lends itself to a more tidy aesthetic, or not necessarily?
Well, it can. I mean, I think it needs borders. So when you use it like if there's a like rectilinear space where I can do granite cobbles or an edge to it, the turf has to be kind of tucked, kind of like carpeting, like wall to wall carpeting.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have something on the edges that holds it. So I think it works best when you have a really architectural space where you can do that. So it is like a rug that you lay down.
Like boxwoods or whatever going around.
Boxwoods or some kind of hardscape that you can take it to.
Right.
So I do use it, but it's I would say it's on a small percentage of our projects.
Well, and in the South, we do have beautiful gardens and it's very green. And I don't see it a lot here, but I just sometimes think, especially when it's raining and I see people's sprinklers going, it makes me furious with the waste. So I like the cleanliness of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that you travel a lot and you like to see gardens, and I watch you on Instagram with that. What are your favorite gardens that you've been able to see in the world?
Wow. There's a lot of them out there. There's always more to see. I love Europe. I go to Europe frequently. Actually, I just came back from Nice, and it was the first time I've traveled really since the pandemic started.
Right.
So it's been a couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just so nice to be out of the country again. But I always build in gardens to my travels, as you can imagine. So gardens, and I really like architecture as well.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I can find like a manor house or a chateau or something that has it all, that's where I end up.
Right.
Yeah.
But other than like a place like Versailles, which is very obvious, what are some gardens or some special houses that you've seen that maybe we may not know of?
Well, I really when I first started going to Europe when I was about 30 years ago, when I could really afford to start traveling, I would research. At the time, it was like with books. I would look through books and I would see beautiful places, and most of them were not things that were open to the public. They were private residences, and they I could find the location. With research, I could find out who owned it, and I would handwrite the owners and tell them who I was, that my education, my continuing education, was built on seeing great gardens of the world. So people who have gardens are usually really special people, and they like sharing gardens with other garden enthusiasts. And I would say about 90% of the people I wrote to would write me back and would make an appointment, and I'd get directions, I'd go there and have a private tour. So that's kind of how it started out, that I would do that, and it was amazing. And it's like, how do you reward someone or thank them for that? So I would take seeds from my grandmother's garden and package them up and put my logo on it and all of this, and I would take them a packet of special seeds. Like one year I did black hollyhocks that are kind of like an eggplant color, and I would take them and give them a packet of seeds when I left, and the response was like really amazing.
Well, and did any of them ever turn into longtime friendships from going to a stranger's house and meeting somebody, and it just...
A few of them I've kept in touch with, and a few I've actually been back to over the years.
I love that. I love having those sort of impromptu experiences and being able to see how other people live. What are some of your favorite houses here in the Southeast? Maybe ones you've worked on, or maybe ones that you've just admired? Or are there any? I mean, there are a lot of great houses here in Atlanta, but I am focusing on the Southeast in general. So if there are any architects or Any projects in particular that you think are really a great representation of your work or
Well, of
something?
course, we have the Swan House here in
Mhm.
Atlanta, which is an amazing house and garden.
Right.
And there's I would say, like, locally, that's probably the greatest house and garden combination
Mm.
that exists.
Mm.
But there are, from that period, there are other houses up and down the eastern seaboard that are kind of from the Golden Age era that are available for people to go and tour. There's Dumbarton Oaks in Washington, D.C.
We were just talking about that with Young and how we used to sneak in and go skinny dipping after we go clubbing because you could just scale the wall, and all the kids in DC did that, and it was so beautiful. And it's a museum now, so it's open to the public,
Right.
but not at 3 a.m. But anyway, we were doing that. But I actually got married recently in Melanie Turner's house, which is a Schutze house too, and
Yes.
they really, when they bought that house, it just gave me anxiety, like, oh my God, because it was sort of crumbling, and they revived it and did the garden so beautifully.
Yeah, that's a fabulous house, and thank goodness that
they bought it. Yeah,
they bought it,
Mhm.
because I love how they've been really good caregivers for the house, and really nurtured it kind of back to life. I actually helped them with the garden, the rear.
Oh, did you?
With the rear
Oh, it's
garden
beautiful.
and
That's where I got married, and it just, because sadly, that a lot of people that were lucky enough to own these houses, the money ran out because generations past had actually earned the money, and so that house is a perfect example of that, because the street has no representation of the house, and they were able to really shield
kind of
screen it off, and
Yeah.
it looks beautiful. And I love that garden. I hope that you all will enjoy my wonderful sponsor, L.A. Stein. L.A. Stein was created by Lisa Stein, and her work is beautiful. She has given us a special discount for all of my customers, and that is the promo code SARAH, SARAH, 15. It's the new year. Start your collection. So, are there any things that people are asking for that's sort of unique? We've been sort of discussing with interiors how people love beautiful closets now, and sculleries, but still having the kitchen. Is there anything in particular that you find your clients are asking for that's unique?
Well, in general, people are looking for spaces to entertain in outside. And some want outdoor kitchens. Most want outdoor dining somewhere, even if there's not an outdoor kitchen. But usually they want to be able to cook somewhere. Sometimes it's just grilling, and sometimes it gets very elaborate with it's like almost a full kitchen outside.
But don't you find our climate's a little bit tough? It sort of is either too hot or then it goes cool. It's not like LA or something where you can really live outside.
It's not like LA, which has so many more days and less humid weather. But I think we have a really long season here. So even our winters, we can have beautiful 60-degree days in the winter, and people can use their outdoor spaces.
Yeah, I love an outdoor space, but I feel like in the South, like maybe if it's screened in, or you have a fireplace outside to accommodate when it gets cooler, and then somehow figure out what to do when it's really hot in the summer.
Well, people do build a lot of swimming pools.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes. Everybody wants a pool now since COVID.
Everyone wants a pool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be something that was sort of a negative on a house, and sometimes, but now everybody seems to want them, and it really enhances.
You have to get in line for it. Really, the pool contractors are backlogged, and it's kind of crazy. I've never seen it like that, but they really have a backlog because I think COVID really made people think about home. the interior of the homes, their outdoor spaces, the fact that everyone had to sequester themselves and their families, that they started recognizing that maybe there were a lot of things that they could improve and wanted to do differently, having spent that much time there.
Yeah, I feel like people are really resistant to go back to the office full time now, but I'm sure eventually we will, because I find that I am more productive if I get out of the house. But do you do projects, commercial projects too, to kind of bring a softness to a commercial project? And do they ever ask for spaces where people can relax or meditate, or no? Is that still too woo-woo for Atlanta?
Well, I don't do a lot of commercial because it's really not what I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm.
I've done some clubs, some private clubs. I've helped the Piedmont Driving Club here. When they renovated it, I don't know, it was maybe 7 years ago.
Yeah,
So
and that was a beautiful renovation.
And they wanted something that was more residential feeling to it. They wanted to have a garden aspect to it. So
Mm-hmm.
I worked on that. I think it was, really successful, putting the parking underground and creating more green space there. So the net green space was increased, and they added program to the redevelopment, but they ended up with a lot more green space than they started out with. But I'll do things like that where people want something with that kind of quality to it.
Right, kind of creating a more residential feel in a commercial space. So, I also would love to hear from you about just some of the architects that you see that are really creating space that resonates with you, and are there any projects that you're doing now that you're excited about that you could share with us?
Sure, there's a lot that I'm excited about. I would say about half my work is in Atlanta. So in Atlanta, my niche is Lenox Park and or Tuxedo Park, I meant to say, and Peachtree Battle area, some in Ansley Park. So some of the older neighborhoods is where I usually work on new and old homes, and then 50% of my work is out of state, a lot in the Southeast. I'm working on a big project on the Long Island Sound right now, which is an exciting project.
Mm-hmm.
It's a residential project where they tore a house down, but it's waterfront, and it's a beautiful, large house, and it's a lot of fun because it's a little different. Since we don't have a lot of water around here, and it's different than the beaches in the South.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of a different environment.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a great one. And then I'm doing some things in Atlanta that are really exciting too. Some new and old homes. But I would say what really excites me about project work is working in a collaborative environment. That's kind of something I seek.
Mm-hmm. That's what I've heard, that it works better when everybody is working together versus piecemealing it.
Mm-hmm. And I love working as a team with people where there's an architect, there's an interior designer, there's an engaged client, there's a great builder, and you have all these people putting their heads together and discussing the project as a team from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So those are really the projects I get most excited about.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it doesn't matter whether it is a big estate, which we do a lot of that kind of work, but like I will take on a really small project if all of those things are there. If there's a team, they want really high quality finishes. The small ones are a lot of fun doing too.
Well, and the fact that you said that you really love clean lines and that you live in a contemporary fashion, that is really, I think, with the influx of people moving from California and the Northeast, we really are. People want really good contemporary, and we don't have a lot here. So I think that's something that is going to continue to grow. Maybe, I mean, some of the architects and builders I know are trying to go more in that direction, but I love the Palm Springs sort of architecture, and I wish that there was more of that coming here, where you have the U-shaped house and you've got, the green in the center and the pool, and I think that there's, because we're becoming more of a international city, I think that that's something that's going to be coming, or people want it more. I mean, I feel like people are asking for that. And one of the things we talked about with Young was that, usually Americans don't really like, it's bigger, throw the house together, especially in new communities, and there's like 2 houses and some pine straw. But I love to see just a perfect little house that's done so beautifully, and you do that really well. And I feel like, as land becomes more scarce, I'm hoping that we can see more of that in Atlanta. And so I think I want to just end with who inspires you, or what has inspired you to become the person you are today.
Well, I think everyone I meet inspires me, actually. I get stuff, I get inspiration from really the teams I work with, definitely, because it's my work, but just in day-to-day life, people inspire me all the time. I do love to see beautiful things, art, architecture, buildings. That's part of the travel thing too, is being able to kind of get away from your day-to-day mode and see something different that makes you really think in a different way.
But let me back up. Who was the tastemaker when you were growing up? Was it your mom, your dad? Who?
My mom, definitely. She wouldn't let me wear jeans. I could wear corduroys, but I couldn't wear jeans because she thought they were like workers' pants or something.
Right.
But she was like super stylish, and she was musically inclined, and I think I got a lot about just a sense of like fashion and art from her. Although my dad was a really artistic person as well. He could draw really well.
Because I feel like somewhere I think about my childhood, and I think about the importance of the aesthetic, and my Nana, and how I would go to her house, and she was an avid gardener, but everything was so tidy and beautiful and smelled really good, and it's all these little things that sort of catch up to you. And you were probably, I mean, you're in the era that I am, that, if I wore ripped jeans in front of my parents, they were like, oh. So I'm like, well, whatever, you don't get it. But, they were very sort of, not conservative, but, people of almost of a different era. Mm-hmm. It was like the crossover. I grew up eating dinner in candlelight. Like, who does that? But they were sort of like trying to hold on to an era that wasn't in existence, really.
I do that now.
Yeah, I do too. I get so irritated with it. I want things to be a certain way because it really makes me feel good. And it's those little touches. But I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I felt like when you were saying that it must have started at a young age.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think a lot of things start at a young age. You're influenced by your surroundings, the people you're around. And, over time, you continue to be, influenced by the people you spend time with, and the places you go, things you see. I'm kind of always looking for like beauty and inspiration everywhere I go. And I think it just kind of filters in, right? It filters in, and then at some point, your mind and body filters it, and then it comes back out as your expression of who you are and what the way you view the world.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of things, I mean, even in a restaurant, it can be just about the lighting that makes it beautiful. And there's so many, I'm in your business too, the lighting in a garden. I mean, they're very subtle, but it's what creates the experience. And I loved when I talked to a builder I know who's very well respected, Stan Benecki.
Mm-hmm.
He said, people often don't know how it got there or why they like it, but it feels good to them. And I feel like the creative people like you that I'm asking to come and speak with me are people who are very sensitive to how things feel. So,
absolutely.
And you do such a beautiful job in creating a space that just makes sense and it just feels good when you walk into it. So, well, you were quite a talent, and can you, so you have your Howard, can you give everybody your website so people can read?
Sure, yeah, it's HowardDesignStudio.com.
Okay. And I noticed you have several people working for you. You have a big team now.
It's not that big. There's 7 of us,
Mm-hmm.
and we kind of work together as collaborators too. I'm kind of the, I guess, creative director of the firm. So my hand is on everything, but I really let them take the projects and run with them and kind of manage the day-to-day, activity on all of it. And I try to have kind of a hands-off as much as I can management style,
Mm-hmm.
and let them come to me and review so that I can give them like my perspective on it. But I think it's important for anyone in a creative field to kind of have ownership of what they do. So yeah, so I have a team of 7, and everyone has degrees in landscape architecture.
Okay.
And let me think. Everyone on my team right now is from the southeastern part of the country.
Oh, wonderful.
So we're all Southerners.
Well, I was saying in my last one and in my introduction that I think the South is really kind of a leader right now. And I've been very impressed with the talent that because I'm from the Northeast, moving here and just seeing such great architecture and just the way Southerners take care of their gardens, and just especially in Atlanta, it's so green. And when I moved here, I was just like, wow, because in DC, there are a few neighborhoods that, have nice gardens, but in general, people are more concerned with their master's degrees and working and blah, blah, blah than their houses. And really in the South, people take a special care of their homes, and I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's correct. And I think that Atlanta has a really unique design community as a whole.
Yeah, strong.
I'm a member of some national organizations of designers, and there's certain cities, LA, Chicago, New York, and Atlanta, which are kind of the leaders. And it's really interesting watching the different city groups. Atlanta seems to have a more cohesive group of people where everyone respects each other.
Right.
They're
Mm-hmm.
friends with one another.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, even though they may cross over in collaborative teams, that everyone really likes each other. So
I've noticed that.
It's a really nice thing.
Yes, everybody really wants to help each other along, and
Yeah.
Suzanne Kassler was one of the first big time interior designers that I met here, and I just noticed that there was so much crossover with work, and I never felt like, I felt like everybody that I knew was always trying to help one another. So I think that's what's really nice about the South, and I hope that it stays that way.
I hope so too.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with me.
Oh, yeah,
And
it was
I'm
a
really
pleasure.
excited
Great to see
have
you.
you on here. You're such a talent.
Thanks so much, Sarah.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.